Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Liberty, watching the stars through the main viewport. The massive ship carried 50,000 sleeping colonists in its cargo holds. They were all heading to Haven Prime, a new world where humans could build another home among the stars. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings on the sensors," said Amy Chen from her communication station. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her judgment. "There are ships out there, big ones." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The dots on the display showed at least 20 vessels moving toward them. They were still far away, but getting closer fast. "Any identification signals?" Jake asked. Amy shook her head. "Nothing yet, sir. But the ships are huge, much bigger than anything we have." Dr. Lisa Grant entered the bridge from the medical bay. She was the civilian leader of the colony mission, and Jake respected her wisdom. "Is there a problem, Captain?" "Might have visitors," Jake said calmly. "Nothing to worry about yet." Commander Rick Hayes, the head of security, looked up from his tactical station. "Captain, those ships are armed, heavy weapons, military formation." His voice was tense. Jake nodded. Rick was always suspicious of aliens, but he was usually right about military threats. "How long until they reach us?" 20 minutes at their current speed, Amy reported. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Let's see what they want." The main screen flickered to life. A massive alien face appeared, with dark purple skin and 4 yellow eyes. Sharp teeth filled its mouth when it spoke. "Human vessel. I am War Prime Zekthar of the Kethvar Dominion. Your ship will stop and prepare for boarding." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Morrison of the UNS Liberty. We're on a peaceful colonization mission. We have no weapons and pose. No threat to your people." Zekthar laughed, a horrible sound that made the bridge crew uncomfortable. "Peaceful? Yes, humans are always peaceful. That is why you are so weak." "We're just trying to pass through this space," Jake said politely. "We have proper documentation from the Galactic Federation." "The Federation means nothing here," Zekthar snarled. "This is Dominion space now. Your ship and all humans aboard will become property of the Kethvar. You will work in our mines until you die." Dr. Grant stepped forward. "That's slavery. The Galactic Federation laws forbid slavery of any sentient species." Zekthar's 4 eyes focused on her. "Laws are for the strong to impose on the weak. Humans are clearly the weakest species I have ever encountered. Look at your ship. No armor, no weapons, no courage." "We choose not to carry weapons," Jake said. "We believe in peaceful solutions. And that is why you will make good slaves," Zekthar replied. "My warriors will board your vessel in 10 minutes. Any resistance will result in the death of half your colonists. Surrender now, and only a quarter will die as examples." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. "Captain," Rick said quietly, "we need to get those people out of the sleep pods. If we're going to fight, we need numbers." "We're not going to fight," Jake said calmly. "We can't win against 20 warships." "So we just give up?" Rick asked, anger in his voice. "We follow protocol," Jake replied. He walked to his command chair and pressed a series of buttons on the armrest. "Amy, send a message to Earth. Priority Alpha." Amy's fingers flew over her controls. "Channel open, sir." Jake leaned forward. "This is Captain Morrison of the UNS Liberty. Package delivered, guests are early." "Repeat, package delivered, guests are early." He cut the transmission and looked at his crew. "That's all we can do for now." "That's it?" Rick demanded. "Some coded message?" "That's enough," Jake said softly. Dr. Grant stared at him. "Jake, what was that message? What package?" Before Jake could answer, the ship shuddered. Red lights flashed as the engines shut down. "They're using some kind of dampening field," Amy reported. "Our engines are offline. Communications are being jammed." "How long until they board us?" Dr. Grant asked. 5 minutes, Rick replied, checking his scanners. Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "Rick, get your security teams ready. Don't start a fight, but protect the civilians. Lisa, prepare the medical bay for wounded. Amy, keep trying to break through their jamming. What about you? Dr. Grant asked. I'll meet with War Prime Zekthar when he comes aboard, try to negotiate. Rick shook his head. He's not going to negotiate. You heard him. He wants slaves. I know, Jake said. But we have to try. The ship shuddered again as alien vessels attached to the hull. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the corridors. They're breaching the cargo bay, Rick reported. 20 hostiles, armed with energy weapons. Let them come, Jake said. No resistance unless they threaten civilians. Dr. Grant grabbed Jake's arm. There has to be something we can do. 50,000 people are depending on us. Jake looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Those people are going to be fine, Lisa, trust me. How can you be so calm, she asked. Because I know something the Kethvar don't, Jake replied. What's that? They just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The bridge doors burst open. 6 Kethvar warriors in heavy armor stormed in, weapons pointed at the human crew. They were huge, nearly 8 feet tall, with powerful builds and threatening postures. Behind them walked War Prime Zekthar himself. He looked around the bridge with contempt. So this is the command center of the mighty human vessel, he said mockingly. Pathetic. My personal shuttle has better weapons than this entire ship. As I said, we're not a military vessel, Jake replied calmly. Zekthar backhanded Jake across the face, sending him stumbling. You will speak only when spoken to, slave. Dr. Grant moved to help Jake, but a warrior blocked her path. You humans disgust me, Zekthar continued. No wonder you hide behind the Federation's protection. You have no strength, no honor, no courage. We prefer peace to war, Jake said, wiping blood from his mouth. Peace is for the dead, Zekthar snarled. The living take what they want through strength. He walked to the communications station where Amy sat frozen in fear. Send a message to all Dominion forces. Tell them I have captured a human colony ship without losing a single warrior. Let the galaxy see how weak these creatures truly are. Amy looked to Jake, who nodded slightly. With shaking hands, she opened the channel. This is War Prime Zekthar of the Kethvar Dominion. The alien spoke into the transmitter. I have just captured a human vessel carrying 50,000 colonists. The humans surrendered without firing a single shot. They begged for mercy like the cowards they are. Let this be a lesson to all who think humans are anything more than prey. He gestured to his warriors. Take the command crew to the detention cells. Begin processing the colonists for slave labor. The weak ones can be used for target practice. As the Kethvar warriors grabbed the bridge crew, Dr. Grant noticed something strange. Captain Morrison wasn't struggling or protesting. Instead, he seemed almost relieved. Jake, she whispered as they were dragged away. What did that message to Earth really mean? Jake looked at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much older and harder than she remembered. It meant that the Kethvar just declared war on the deadliest species in the galaxy, he said quietly. And they don't even know it yet. War Prime Zekthar was already planning how to display his new human slaves when his communication officer approached nervously. War Prime, we're receiving strange reports. From our border worlds, several patrol ships have gone silent. Zekthar waved dismissively. Probably equipment failures. Focus on processing these humans. I want them ready for transport to the slave markets within the day. He had no way of knowing that at that very moment, deep in Earth's solar system, massive doors were opening in hidden bases. Ships that had been built in secret for decades were beginning to move. The sleeping giant was waking up. Admiral Susan Blake sat in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The massive underground facility had been built in secret over 30 years ago. Very few people knew it existed. The message from Captain Morrison had arrived 20 minutes ago. Those 6 words had changed everything. Package delivered. Guests are early. Susan looked at the faces around the table. General Pete Collins commanded Earth's Special Forces. Major Kate Rodriguez led the rescue divisions. Dr. Alan White managed the secret weapons programs. They were the only people on Earth who knew what those words really meant. Protocol 7 is now active, Susan announced. All sleeping assets are to be awakened immediately. General Collins leaned forward. How long since we last used Protocol 7? 32 years ago, Susan replied. The Terran incident. The room fell silent. Everyone remembered the Terran incident, even though the galaxy had tried to forget it. Pirates had attacked a human research station. 3,000 civilians had died. The human response had been so terrible that the Galactic Council had classified all records and relocated the survivors to prevent panic. Are we sure about this? Major Rodriguez asked. Once we reveal our true capabilities, there's no going back. The Kethvar made their choice when they attacked the Liberty, Susan said coldly. 50,000 civilians are now slaves. That cannot stand. Dr. White activated his tablet. I'm bringing the hidden shipyards online now. Luna Base, Asteroid, Belt Station, and the outer system facilities are all responding. On the main screen, images appeared from across the solar system. Massive doors opened in the dark side of the moon. Artificial asteroids split apart to reveal hidden construction bays. In the cold reaches beyond Pluto, entire fleets of ships began to move. My God, Major Rodriguez whispered. How many ships do we have? More than enough, Susan replied. General Collins stood up. I'll begin mobilizing the ground forces. How many Marines do we have in the special divisions? 2 million, Susan said. All volunteers, all trained for this exact scenario. 2 million? Rodriguez stared at her. Where did we hide 2 million soldiers? The same place we hid everything else, Susan replied, in plain sight. On Earth, the message had been received by hundreds of seemingly normal businesses and organizations. A shipping company in Detroit shut down its normal operations and began loading military equipment. A mining corporation in Australia revealed that their workers were actually Special Forces soldiers. A research station in Antarctica opened hidden bunkers filled with weapons. In Geneva, Ambassador Helen Moore was sitting in her office when her secure phone rang. She answered on the first ring. The package has been delivered, the voice said. Helen closed her eyes. She had hoped this day would never come. I understand. How long do I have? 12 hours before the first ships arrive. Use the time wisely. Helen hung up and walked to her window. The Galactic Council building stood across the street. Inside, representatives from hundreds of worlds conducted their business, believing that humans were just another peaceful species. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Across the galaxy, the Kethvar's broadcast was spreading. War Prime Zekthar's boastful message played on news channels and military networks. Most aliens reacted with mild sympathy for the humans and disgust at the Kethvar's actions, but some aliens had a different reaction. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, an old merchant named Vex High watched the broadcast with growing horror. He had traded with humans for 20 years. He knew things about them that most aliens didn't. Vex High grabbed his communication device and called the Galactic Council emergency line. This is Vex High of the Merchant Guild. I need to speak to the Security Council immediately. What is the nature of your emergency? The operator asked. The Kethvar have just declared war on the humans. They don't understand what they've done. Sir, the humans are a peaceful species. They pose no military threat. That's what they want you to think, Vex High said urgently. I was there during the Terran incident. I saw what humans do when their civilians are killed. The Terran incident is classified. I have no record of such an event. Of course you don't. The Council buried it to prevent panic. But I remember. An entire pirate fleet vanished overnight. 12,000 raiders gone without a trace. Sir, I think you're confused. Please contact your local. Vex High cut the connection in frustration. He began packing his belongings. Every alien who had really dealt with humans was doing the same thing. They were running. In the Kethvar Dominion, War Prime Zekthar was celebrating his easy victory. He had moved his command ship to orbit above the captured Liberty. The human colonists were being sorted into work groups. The strongest would go to the mines. The weakest would be killed for entertainment. War Prime, his communication officer, reported. We're receiving reports from our border worlds. Several patrol ships have missed their check-ins. Equipment failures, Zekthar said dismissively. Focus on the slaves. But the reports kept coming. 3 patrol ships missing, then 5, then an entire squadron. War Prime Admiral Kexvar requests permission to investigate the missing ships. Granted. But tell him to be quick about it. I want those ships back on patrol. Admiral Kexvar took his fastest cruiser toward the border. The first missing patrol ship was found drifting in space, its crew dead. The second ship was missing entirely. The third had been cut apart by weapons the Kethvar had never seen before. What could do this? Kexvar's tactical officer asked. I don't know, the admiral replied. But scan for any ships in the area. The sensors showed nothing. Empty space in all directions. That's when the attack came. A ship appeared from nowhere, as if it had materialized from empty space. It was sleek and black with no markings. Its weapons fired once, precise and deadly. Admiral Kexvar's cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. The attacking ship vanished again, leaving no trace it had ever been there. On Earth, Captain Dan Parker stood on the bridge of the UNS Wraith. His ship was the first of its kind, equipped with technology that made it invisible to alien sensors. Target destroyed, sir, his tactical officer reported. No survivors. Good. Send a message to Admiral Blake. Phase 1 is complete. What about the Kethvar homeworld, sir? We wait. Let them wonder what's hunting them. Back in the underground, Command Center Admiral Blake received the report. The first blood had been drawn. How many stealth ships do we have in the field? General Collins asked. 50, Blake replied. Each one equipped with our latest technology. The aliens have never seen anything like them. What's Phase 2? We make them afraid. Really afraid. Dr. White looked up from his computer. The hidden fleets are almost ready. We'll have 200 warships operational within 6 hours. 200? Major Rodriguez couldn't hide her amazement. How did we build so many ships without anyone noticing? We've been preparing for this day since we joined the Galactic Federation, Blake explained. Every trade mission, every diplomatic visit, every cultural exchange was gathering intelligence. We knew this day would come. The aliens think we're peaceful, General Collins said. They have no idea what we're really capable of. They're about to find out, Blake replied. On the captured Liberty, Captain Morrison sat in his cell. The Kethvar had beaten him several times, but he remained calm. Dr. Grant was in the cell next to him, along with Amy Chen. Jake, Dr. Grant, whispered, What's really happening? That message you sent, what did it mean? Morrison looked at her through the bars. Lisa, how long have you known me? 5 years. Since you took command of the Liberty. And what do you know about my background? You were a cargo ship captain. Civilian transport. Morrison smiled sadly. That's what my file says, but it's not the whole truth. What do you mean? I mean that for 15 years before I took command of the Liberty, I was something else entirely. What? Admiral Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Force. I commanded the fleet that ended the Terran incident. Dr. Grant stared at him in shock. That's impossible. You're just a transport captain. The best place to hide is in plain sight, Morrison said. How many other civilian captains do you think are really military officers? How many cargo ships are really warships? How many colonists are really soldiers? The truth began to dawn on Dr. Grant. The Liberty, the colonists. 50,000 civilians, yes, but also 5,000 Special Forces operators and their families. The mining equipment in Cargo Bay 7? Military vehicles? The medical supplies in Bay 12? Weapons and ammunition? You've been planning this. We've been preparing for this. There's a difference. The explosion echoed through the ship. The lights flickered. What was that? Amy asked. Morrison smiled. That was the sound of the Kethvar learning their first lesson about humans. Outside, one of the Kethvar escort ships had just vanished in a ball of fire. The UNS Wraith had struck again. War Prime Zekthar stormed onto his bridge. What happened? Unknown vessel attacked escort ship Destroyer 7. The ship was destroyed with all hands. Where is the attacking vessel? Unknown, War Prime. Our sensors detected nothing. That's impossible. Run a full scan of the system. We are, War Prime. There's nothing there. But Zekthar was wrong. There were 12 human ships in the system now, all invisible to Kethvar sensors. They were watching, waiting, hunting. War Prime Zekthar paced on his command bridge like a caged animal. In the past 6 hours, he had lost 8 ships. 8 ships that had simply vanished without warning. His warriors were starting to whisper about ghost vessels and phantom attackers. War Prime, his tactical officer called out nervously. Patrol ship Thunder 9 has missed its check-in. That makes 9 ships, Zekthar snarled. 9 ships against an enemy we cannot see. Perhaps we should contact the Dominion homeworld for reinforcements, suggested his second-in-command. And tell them what? That we're being attacked by invisible ships? They'll think we've gone insane. On the captured human vessel Liberty, the situation was different than Zekthar believed. Commander Rick Hayes crouched in the ventilation shaft above the alien engine room. With him were 12 members of his security team, all of them former military specialists. How many more charges do we have? Whispered Sergeant Billy Cooper. Enough to cripple their main power systems, Rick replied quietly. But we need to time this perfectly. Rick's team had escaped during the initial boarding. While the Kethvar focused on the bridge crew and civilians, Rick and his people had vanished into the ship's maintenance areas. They knew the Liberty better than anyone, and they were using that knowledge to wage war from within. Sir, I've got eyes on their main reactor, reported Corporal Nina Walsh through her radio. 2 guards, both distracted. Wait for my signal, Rick ordered. We hit them, all at once. 3 decks below, the Kethvar were celebrating their victory by forcing human prisoners to fight each other for their entertainment. Dr. Grant watched in horror as colonists were beaten and humiliated. This is sick, she whispered to Captain Morrison. It's about to get worse for them, Morrison replied calmly. How can you be so sure? Because Rick Hayes was never just a security chief. He was a demolitions expert in the war against the Centauri rebels. If anyone can turn this ship into a weapon, it's him. Above them, War Prime Zekthar was receiving another disturbing report. War Prime, we've lost contact with the destroyer, Bloodfang. It was investigating the wreckage of Sword 7 when it went silent. Send 2 ships to investigate. No, send 4 ships, and tell them to stay together. But the 4 ships would find nothing except wreckage. The UNS Wraith had struck again, along with her sister ships. Captain Dan Parker watched from his invisible vessel as the Kethvar fleet grew smaller and more frightened. Sir, we're receiving new orders from Admiral Blake, his communications officer reported. Put it through. Admiral Blake's voice crackled over the secure channel. Captain Parker, Phase 2 is now authorized. Make them understand what fear means. Understood, Admiral. Beginning psychological operations. Parker turned to his crew. Target their command ship, not to destroy but to deliver a message. The Yow. Wraith moved silently through space, her stealth systems making her invisible to all sensors. She approached the massive Kethvar flagship from below, where their weapons couldn't reach. Torpedo loaded, sir, the weapons officer reported. Fire. The torpedo struck the flagship's hull, but it didn't explode. Instead, it attached itself to the armor plating and began broadcasting a message on all Kethvar frequencies. On the bridge of the flagship, War Prime Zekthar watched in confusion as human words appeared on his screens. You have attacked civilians. You have enslaved innocents. You have declared war on humanity. We are coming for you. We are the species that hunts the hunters. We are the nightmare that follows the nightmare. Run while you still can. The message repeated in 17 different alien languages, including Kethvar. How did they get through our shields? Zekthar demanded. Unknown, War Prime. The projectile came from empty space. There's nothing there. Scan again. We are scanning, War Prime. There's nothing within 1,000,000 kilometers. But they were wrong. The Wraith was less than 1,000 meters away, watching and waiting. Inside the Liberty, Rick Hayes received the signal he had been waiting for. All teams execute now. Explosions rocked the captured ship as Rick's people destroyed key systems throughout the vessel. The lights went out. Life support failed. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. In the darkness, Rick and his team moved. Like ghosts. They had trained for this exact scenario. The HFY stumbled around in confusion while human soldiers eliminated them one by one. "Engine room secured," reported Sergeant Cooper. "Weapons control neutralized," added Corporal Walsh. "Communications array destroyed," confirmed another team member. Rick made his way to the detention area where the human prisoners were held. He found Dr. Grant and Captain Morrison in their cells, along with dozens of other colonists. "Rick," Dr. Grant gasped, "how did you escape?" "We never really got captured," Rick replied, opening the cell doors. "The captain and I planned this from the beginning." "You planned to be captured?" "We needed to get inside their flagship," Morrison explained. "The only way to do that was to let them take us. But the colonists, the civilians, are all going to be rescued," Rick said firmly. "But first we need to send a message." Rick led them through the darkened corridors to the ship's command center. The HFY crew was dead or unconscious. Rick activated the communication system. "This is Commander Hayes of the Human Defense Force." He broadcast on all frequencies. "To any HFY listening, you made a mistake when you attacked our people. We don't surrender, we don't negotiate with slavers, we fight." He paused, looking at the dead aliens around him. "Your war prime boasted that humans are weak. Let me show you how wrong he was." Rick activated the Liberty's self-destruct sequence, but with a twist. Instead of destroying the ship, the explosion would be shaped to tear through the HFY flagship's hull. "All human personnel, evacuate to the escape pods. We're leaving our hosts a farewell gift." War Prime Zekthar was still trying to understand the mysterious message when his flagship shuddered. Emergency alarms blared throughout the vessel. "What's happening?" he demanded. "The human ship is experiencing massive explosions, War Prime. But the energy is being directed toward us." "What do you mean?" "They've turned their ship into a weapon. It's going to breach our hull." The Liberty exploded in a carefully controlled chain reaction. The blast tore through the flagship's armor like paper. Atmosphere rushed out into space. Hundreds of HFY warriors died in the vacuum. War Prime Zekthar found himself floating in his ruined command center, his ship crippled and dying. Through the torn hull, he could see escape pods launching from the wreckage of the human vessel. "Sir," his surviving tactical officer gasped, "the human prisoners are escaping. Stop them." "We can't, sir. Our weapons are offline. Our engines are destroyed. We're dead in space." As the human escape pods flew away, Zekthar realized something terrible. The humans hadn't just escaped. They had planned this from the beginning. They had allowed themselves to be captured so they could destroy his flagship from within. "War Prime," another officer reported weakly, "we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion homeworld." "Put it through." The face of Supreme Commander Vakthar appeared on the damaged screen. He looked furious. "War Prime Zekthar, what is your status?" "We've lost contact with half your fleet." "We're under attack, Supreme Commander. The humans have some kind of invisible ships." "Impossible. Humans are weak. You said so yourself." "I was wrong," Zekthar admitted. "These humans are not like the others. They fight like nothing I've ever seen." "How many ships have you lost?" 15, maybe more. They attack from nowhere and vanish before we can respond." Supreme Commander Vakthar's expression changed. 15 ships? Against a single human transport? There are more ships out there. Many more. And they're hunting us. On the bridge of the UNS Wraith, Captain Parker watched the crippled HFY flagship floating helplessly in space. "Sir, the human escape pods are clear," his officer reported. "Good. Signal the fleet. All ships begin final phase operations." "What about the flagship, sir?" "Leave it. Let them send a message to their homeworld. Let them tell everyone what happens when you attack human civilians." Parker activated his communication system. "This is Captain Parker to all HFY vessels. You have one chance to survive. Surrender now and release all human prisoners. You have 30 minutes to decide." The response came immediately from the few remaining HFY ships. "This is Admiral Hexvar of the HFY Dominion. We do not surrender to inferior species." "Wrong answer," Parker replied. The human fleet struck like lightning. 12 invisible ships attacked simultaneously. The remaining Kethvar vessels never had a chance. They were torn apart by weapons they couldn't see, fired by ships they couldn't detect. In 15 minutes, the entire Kethvar fleet was destroyed, except for the crippled flagship. War Prime Zekthar floated in his ruined command center, surrounded by the bodies of his warriors. His mighty fleet was gone. His invasion force was destroyed, and somewhere in the darkness of space human ships were watching him. His communication system crackled to life one final time. This is Admiral Susan Blake of the Earth Defense Force. War Prime Zekthar, you are now a prisoner of war. Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion has failed. A rescue ship will arrive to collect survivors in 6 hours. You cannot defeat the Dominion, Zekthar gasped. We have thousands of ships. Had, Blake corrected, past tense. Supreme Commander Vakthar stood in the war room of the Dominion capital, staring at the holographic display in disbelief. The tactical screen showed empty space where War Prime Zekthar's fleet should have been. You're telling me that 23 warships were destroyed by a single human transport vessel? He asked his intelligence officer. Not exactly, Supreme Commander. Our analysis suggests the humans had multiple stealth vessels in the area, ships we cannot detect with our current technology. How many ships? Unknown. Could be dozens. Could be hundreds. Vakthar turned to face the Dominion High Council. The other military leaders looked worried for the first time in decades. What do we know about human military capabilities? Asked Fleet Admiral Kirvan. Very little, admitted Intelligence Chief Nextor. Their public records show only merchant vessels and exploration ships, no significant military presence. Obviously those records are wrong, Vakthar snarled. What about the Terran incident that old traitor mentioned? The files are classified by the Galactic Council. We cannot access them. Before Vakthar could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. A technician looked up from his station with wide eyes. Supreme Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of our system. Multiple contacts approaching at high speed. How many? Vakthar demanded. I'm reading, this can't be right. How many? Vakthar repeated. Over 200 ships, sir. All heading directly for our homeworld. The main display changed to show the incoming fleet. The ships were unlike anything the Kethvar had ever seen. Sleek, predatory designs that moved with deadly purpose through space. Transmission incoming, the communications officer reported. Put it through. The screen flickered to show a human face. The man was older, with gray hair and cold blue eyes. His uniform bore symbols the Kethvar didn't recognize. I am Fleet. Admiral John Carter of the Human Expeditionary Force. Supreme Commander Vakthar, you have one opportunity to avoid the complete destruction of your civilization. Vakthar stepped forward. You dare threaten the Dominion? We have over 3,000 ships in our fleet. Had, Admiral Carter corrected. Your fleet is currently being neutralized by our advance forces. You have lost 800 ships in the past 4 hours. Impossible. Check your communications, Supreme Commander. Ask your outer colonies how many ships they still have. Vakthar turned to his communications officer who was frantically working at his station. The officer's face went pale. Sir, we've lost contact with the Outer Rim Defense Force. The Third Fleet isn't responding. The garrison at Keth Prime has gone silent. What are your terms? Vakthar asked quietly. Unconditional surrender. Release of all human prisoners. Complete disarmament of your military forces. Your leaders will stand trial for crimes against sentient beings. And if we refuse? Admiral, Carter's expression didn't change. Then we will demonstrate why every intelligent species in this galaxy learns to fear the name Terra. The transmission ended. Vakthar stood in stunned silence for a moment, before turning to his fleet commanders. All available ships to defensive positions around the homeworld. Prepare for battle. Sir, Intelligence Chief Nextor said nervously. Perhaps we should consider their terms. Never. The Dominion does not surrender to inferior species. But even as he spoke, reports were flooding in from across Kethvar space. Human ships were appearing everywhere, striking with devastating efficiency. Entire fleets were being destroyed without the humans losing a single vessel. Colonel Maria Santos stood in the command center of the assault ship UNS Vengeance, watching as the Kethvar homeworld grew larger on the main screen. Around her, 2,000 Marines prepared for the largest military operation in human history. "Colonel, we're receiving final targeting data from the fleet," her tactical officer reported. "Confirmed targets? Military installations, government buildings, and slave processing centers. Civilian areas are marked as protected zones." "Good. We're not here to slaughter innocents. We're here to end a government that thinks slavery is acceptable." The first wave of human ships entered orbit around the Kethvar homeworld. The planetary defense systems opened fire immediately, filling space with energy beams and missile trails. None of them found their targets. The human ships moved like dancers, avoiding every shot with impossible grace. Their return fire was precise and devastating. Defense platforms that had protected the homeworld for centuries were destroyed in minutes. "My God," whispered Dr. Alex Turner from his position on the flagship. "I helped design these weapons, but seeing them in action is terrifying." Admiral Carter stood beside him. "That's the point, Doctor. We don't want to fight wars. We want to win them so quickly that nobody else will be stupid enough to start one." The planetary bombardment began with surgical precision. Military bases vanished under concentrated fire. Government buildings were reduced to rubble. The massive slave processing centers where human colonists had been destined were completely destroyed. But civilian neighborhoods remained untouched. Hospitals and schools were protected by shields that no Kethvar weapon could penetrate. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "the planetary government is requesting a ceasefire." "Denied," Admiral Carter replied. "They had their chance to surrender. Now they get to see what happens when you anger humanity." On the planet's surface, Supreme, Commander Vakthar huddled in his underground bunker as explosions shook the building above. His military was being systematically destroyed, but the humans weren't targeting civilians. "Why aren't they killing everyone?" asked Fleet Admiral Kirvan. "Because they're not like us," Vakthar realized. "They could exterminate our entire species, but they're choosing not to. Then maybe we should surrender. It's too late for that." The assault began at dawn. Colonel Santos led the first wave of Marines as they dropped from orbit in armored pods. The Kethvar ground forces tried to resist, but they were facing soldiers who had trained their entire lives for warfare. Human Marines moved through the alien city like a force of nature. They used tactics the Kethvar had never seen. Weapons the aliens couldn't counter, and a level of coordination that seemed impossible. "Target the military command center," Santos ordered through her radio. "Civilian casualties are not acceptable. Anyone who harms non-combatants will answer to me, personally." The battle for the Kethvar homeworld lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Dominion government had ceased to exist. Supreme Commander Vakthar sat in the ruins of his command bunker, surrounded by human soldiers. Colonel Santos walked up to him, her weapon lowered but ready. "Supreme Commander Vakthar, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient beings, specifically the enslavement and murder of human civilians." "How?" Vakthar asked weakly. "How did you defeat us so easily?" "Because you made the same mistake every bully makes," Santos replied. "You thought being aggressive made you strong. You thought hurting innocents made you powerful. You were wrong. We had thousands of ships, and we had something you didn't." "What?" "A reason to fight that was worth dying for." Dr. Turner was analyzing the captured Kethvar technology when Admiral Carter found him. "What's your assessment, Doctor?" "Their weapons are actually quite advanced," Turner admitted. "In a fair fight, they might have been evenly matched with our older systems. But this wasn't a fair fight." "No, sir. We've been preparing for this scenario for 30 years. Every piece of technology, every tactical doctrine, every strategic plan was designed for exactly this situation. The galaxy needed to see this," Admiral Carter said. "They needed to understand what happens when you attack human civilians. And now they do. Yes, now they do." Across the galaxy, news of the Kethvar Dominion's defeat spread like wildfire. Species that had considered humanity weak and harmless suddenly began reviewing their diplomatic policies. Trade agreements were renegotiated. Military alliances were reconsidered. On Earth, Admiral Blake received the final reports from the expeditionary force. "Total casualties?" she asked General Collins. 17 humans wounded. None killed. "And the Kethvar?" "Their military has been completely dismantled. Government officials are in custody. The population is being relocated to supervised worlds, where they can rebuild their civilization under human oversight." "How many of their ships survived?" "None that matter. We captured some for intelligence purposes, but their fleet is effectively destroyed." Blake nodded. "And the other alien species?" "Every major government in the galaxy has sent diplomatic messages. They all want to reaffirm their friendship with humanity." "I bet they do." General Collins looked at the reports again. "Susan, was this really necessary? We could have solved this with negotiation." "The Kethvar enslaved 50,000 human civilians, Pete. They tortured prisoners for entertainment. They broadcast their crimes across the galaxy as a boast. No, but nothing. The galaxy needed to learn that there are consequences for attacking humanity. Now they know." Blake walked to the window and looked up at the stars. "For 30 years, we've maintained the illusion that we're just another peaceful species. We've hidden our true capabilities, avoided conflicts, and tried to be good neighbors. And now? Now everyone knows the truth. Humanity is the deadliest species in the galaxy. We always have been. The only question is whether the other species will be smart enough to leave us alone." 6 months after the fall of the Kethvar Dominion, Ambassador Helen Moore walked into the Galactic Council chambers. The massive hall that once buzzed with confident alien voices was now silent. Every representative watched her with careful eyes. Helen took her seat at the human delegation table. Around her sat delegates from 300 different worlds, but today they all had one thing in common. They were afraid. "The emergency session will now begin," announced Council Speaker Velcani, a tall blue alien with trembling hands. "We are here to discuss the human military actions in former Dominion space." Helen stood up slowly. Every alien in the room focused on her. "Honored delegates," she began in a calm voice. "I understand you have concerns about recent events. Please, ask your questions." Ambassador Zixtal of the Hegemony was the first to speak. "The humans have established military bases on 47 worlds in the past 6 months. This violates the non-expansion treaty." "The non-expansion treaty applies to peaceful colonization," Helen replied. "These are military occupation forces in former enemy territory, completely legal under Galactic Law Section 12. "But the scale of your operations," protested Representative Morgan from the Trade Federation. "You have over 500,000 troops spread across dozens of systems." "Yes," Helen agreed. "We do." The simple answer hung in the air. Helen offered no excuses, no explanations, just fact. Council Speaker Velcani cleared his throat nervously. "Ambassador Moore, many species are concerned about human intentions. Your military capabilities far exceed what anyone believed possible." "That was intentional," Helen said. "We preferred that other species underestimate us." "Why?" "Because we hoped we would never need to show our true strength. Unfortunately, the Kethvar forced our hand." Ambassador Quindar of the Star Republic leaned forward. "There are reports that human ships have been seen throughout the galaxy, not just in former Dominion space." "Correct. We are conducting patrols to ensure that no other species makes the same mistake the Kethvar made." "That sounds like a threat." Helen looked directly at him. "Ambassador Quindar, 3 days ago your government discussed forming an alliance against humanity. Did you think we wouldn't notice?" The alien's face changed color. "How could you possibly know about classified government discussions?" "We know many things," Helen replied calmly. "For example, we know that the Rigel Consortium has been secretly building a weapons platform near the human trade route. We know that the Centauri Union has been developing biological weapons designed to target human genetics. We know that 17 Different species have been sharing intelligence about human weaknesses. The chamber fell completely silent. Helen continued speaking in the same calm tone. We also know that these activities stopped immediately after the fall of the Dominion. Interesting coincidence, don't you think? President Robert Kane sat in his office on Earth, watching the council session on his screen. Beside him, Admiral Blake reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "How are they taking it?" Kane asked. "About as well as expected," Blake replied. "They're terrified, but they're trying not to show it." "Good. Fear is better than stupidity." "Sir, we're receiving requests for diplomatic meetings from 43 different governments. They all want to improve relations with humanity." Kane smiled coldly. "I bet they do. Schedule them all. But make sure they understand that they're coming to us, not the other way around." "What about the Galactic Council's proposal for a new arms limitation treaty?" "Rejected. We don't need their permission to defend ourselves." On the former Kethvar homeworld, now renamed Liberation, Colonel Santos walked through the refugee camps. The surviving Kethvar civilians were being processed for relocation to new worlds where they could start over. "How are they adjusting?" asked Dr. Turner, who had been assigned to oversee the cultural rehabilitation program. "Better than expected," Santos replied. "Once they realized we weren't going to kill them, most became cooperative. And the former military personnel? The war criminals are being tried on Earth. The regular soldiers are being retrained for civilian jobs. It's going to take time, but they'll adapt." Dr. Turner looked at the alien families waiting in line for food distribution. "Do you think we did the right thing?" "They enslaved 50,000 human civilians, Doctor. They broadcast torture sessions for entertainment. What did you think we should have done?" "I don't know. It just seems so final." "That's the point. We want everyone in the galaxy to understand that attacking human civilians has consequences. Permanent consequences." Back on Earth, Captain Morrison stood in his new office. He was no longer hiding his military rank. The deception was over, and he had been promoted to Rear Admiral of Colonial Defense. Dr. Grant knocked on his door and entered. She looked different now, older and more serious. "The last of the Liberty's colonists have been relocated to New Terra," she reported. "They're settling in well." "Good. Any psychological issues from their captivity?" "Some, but they're proud of what they survived. They know their sacrifice helped expose the Kethvar threat." Morrison nodded. "And Amy Chen?" "She's enrolled in the Naval Academy. Wants to be a communications officer on a real warship this time. She'll do well." Dr. Grant sat down across from him. "Jake, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How long have you known this day would come?" Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Since the day we joined the Galactic Federation. We studied every species, every government, every military force. We knew that eventually someone would test us. And you've been preparing ever since." "We've been preparing since before we left. Earth's solar system. Humanity learned long ago that the universe is a dangerous place. We decided to make sure we were the most dangerous thing in it." Across the galaxy, the old trader Vexhai sat in his ship, writing the final chapter of his book. He had spent months interviewing survivors, collecting data, and documenting the truth about humanity. The Sleeping Terrors, a study of human military capability, would become required reading in every military academy in the galaxy. But Vexhai knew that the real lesson wasn't about weapons or tactics. He typed the final words. The humans won, not because they were stronger, but because they were willing to do what was necessary. They understood that sometimes peace can only be maintained through the threat of overwhelming violence. They prepared for war so thoroughly that when it came, it was over before it truly began. The galaxy has learned that humanity's greatest strength is not their technology or their tactics. It is their willingness to become monsters to protect their innocent. They will smile and trade and laugh with you for decades. But if you harm their children, if you enslave their families, if you mistake their kindness for weakness, you will discover that you have awakened something that should have been left sleeping. There are now 3 types of species in the galaxy: human allies, human enemies, and species smart enough to know the difference. On the trading station Deep Space Nine, alien merchants whispered about the new reality. Human trade ships were welcomed everywhere now. Human requests were granted immediately. Human complaints were addressed with remarkable speed. "Did you hear about the Vorthon Syndicate?" one trader asked another. "What about them?" "They tried to cheat a human merchant, sold him defective navigation equipment." "What happened?" 3 human warships showed up the next day. The syndicate leadership formally apologized and paid triple compensation. They also agreed to new trade regulations favorable to humanity. Smart choice. The first alien leader to request a formal meeting with President Kane was Prime Minister Yel Kara of the Andromedan Commonwealth. She arrived on Earth with a small diplomatic party, expecting to negotiate from a position of strength. Instead, she found herself sitting across from a human leader who spoke softly, but carried the weight of the galaxy's most powerful military behind every word. "Prime Minister," Kane said politely, "how can humanity help the Commonwealth?" "We would like to propose a mutual defense treaty," she said carefully. "Against whom?" "Well, there are always threats in the galaxy. Pirates, rogue states, aggressive species." Kane smiled. "Prime Minister, let me be clear. Humanity has no interest in conquering other worlds. We have no desire to rule an empire. We simply want to be left alone to pursue our own interests." "Of course, Mr. President. However," Kane continued, "we also have no tolerance for attacks on human civilians. We will respond to such attacks with the full force of our military, regardless of who is responsible." "Understood. As long as other species remember that. Simple fact, we can all coexist peacefully. The moment someone forgets it, they will discover why the Keth of our dominion no longer exists." Prime Minister Yelkara left Earth with a new trade agreement that was very favorable to humanity. More importantly, she left with a clear understanding of the new galactic order. 2 years later, the galaxy had settled into its new reality. Human ships patrolled the major trade routes, ensuring that piracy was almost non-existent. Human mediation services had resolved 17 territorial disputes without warfare. Human technology transfers had improved life for billions of aliens. But everyone remembered the lesson of the Keth of our dominion. Peace was maintained not through laws or treaties, but through the understanding that humanity would destroy anyone who threatened innocent life.